If you're a new school data customer, we first need to populate your master tables in the core school data site. If you want the most accurate data in here, it's best to ask your IT department to generate these tables for you. They can usually generate the vast majority of this data directly from the school database. We think we've made this as easy as possible. Simply visit schooldata.com.au and log in at top right. Type your school email address when prompted and press login. Once you're in the site, press Matrix Planning and then navigate to the Help Centre and onto the Resource Library. The first item in the list is the onboarding template. Simply download the template and fill it in. Let's have a look at the tables and the fields. The first table we need is your staff table. Please only feel obliged to populate columns with an asterisk in the heading. Other fields can certainly be left blank for now. Now, which fields aren't self-explanatory? The email field must be the teacher's school email. This is how they log in and how they're authenticated using Microsoft Single Sign-On. If you want to send forms to teachers who haven't started yet, we can do this using the alternate email field, but we can worry about this at a later date. Campus is compulsory. If you don't have campus names, leave this blank and we'll assign DFC or default campus to each teacher. You can create your own employment status categories and codes. If you do this, feel free to email this list across when you send back these import templates. We've used TFT and TPT for teacher full-time and teacher part-time respectively. ESC3 is Ed Support Category 3 in the example here. But as I mentioned, feel free to create your own categories. T/N stands for teaching or non-teaching. When you create staff intentions forms, you can create sections that should only be visible to teaching staff. The form looks up this field to decide whether the staff member should be able to see this particular question. Active and future denote whether the staff member is here this year and or next year. We suggest setting all staff to true in both categories, but if someone is starting next year, you can set active to false. Similarly, if you know they're leaving and you don't want to see them in any load planning documentation, set future to false. Over to the subjects table. We find the most accurate subjects data comes from your school database that the IT department can generate for you. Contact us if you want to discuss why we have found this to be the case. Option name and option code are mandatory, as is faculty. This faculty tag allows you to do things like grant access to the learning leaders to give their dream team staffing. When the head of English logs in, for example, they'll only see classes where ENG is set in the faculty column. Most other fields are self-explanatory, but let's have a quick look at the duration and the subject category. We will create your durations table based on the names you enter here. You can create any subject duration. Year-long, semester and term are common, but you could set month or cycle or week as durations, and these classes will appear in your grids according to the dates you set for each duration. Subject category must be set to TT_subject or it won't appear in this table. Over to allowances. Allowances are a filtered view of the subjects table where the subject category is set to TT_allow. Most fields in here are standard, but I'd like to briefly talk about the code pattern and also what this POL is doing in square brackets here. I'll start with this POL tag as it's a very quick explanation. When you run a timetable report in the coming days, if you have POL in square brackets in the allowance name in your unscheduled duties table of your timetable file, we'll be able to assess the cost of your positions of leadership, and then we'll be able to help you compare these to like schools. Now, the code pattern. Let's go back to the subjects table to begin. We allow the characters O, Y, space, C, T, S, N, L, and U. These stand for option, year, which is the calendar year, space, of course, campus, term, semester, number, lowercase letter, and uppercase letter. O is by far and away the most important. It must match your option code length. So if 10 art has 5 characters, we must see 5 O's in here. So what does this code pattern tell us? Well, it says that when we import a timetable file, a TFX file, we expect our script to find something that starts with the calendar year for 2 digits, followed by a space. Then we'll have 10 ART or 10 art in that order, then a 1 or a 2 as the semester code, and then 2 numbers from 0 to 9. If you use letters in your suffix, make sure you use L for lowercase or U for uppercase. This fancy script allows us to bring any kinds of interesting code formations back into the site. So when we import a file, we know which subject we're importing. Okay, let's wrap this up. Rooms are straightforward. In fact, feel free to simply paste your rooms table from your TFX here if it's up to date. And finally, we have students. This table is optional, but if you want students to potentially undertake an approvals process or fill out subject selection forms in the site, we will need this data. Most of this stuff is straightforward. The only slight variation to the norm is found here, where this Year 12 student doesn't have a planner year level, so we simply enter the year they're expected to leave in this cell. I've also set this student to future equals false for that reason. And that's it. Once you have these tables populated, please send them back to info@schooldata.com.au and we'll get you set up to access all of the powerful tools in the School Data Suite. In our next video, we'll show you how to rapidly check the data in your timetable file before running the timetable report. So we'll see you over in that video shortly.